All right, this is Chapter 7. Perfect timing. You're back just in time. So, Chapter 7, Security Management Practices. Okay? All right, it says organizations strive to deliver the most value for their money. In other words, what's the least amount I can spend or what's the most I can get out of the money I am spending? Okay? Which makes sense. You don't want to just waste it. Is there anyone here that just feels like wasting money for the heck of it? Hopefully not. Okay.
At the end of fiscal year.
Oh, yeah, actually, you know. I was a resource advisor for a while in the military. And man, it'd come up and they'd be like, all right, you got to spend all this money. And I still remember the day standing at supply, having thousands of dollars to spend. And then, like, what do you got? What can we spend money on? Because if we don't use it, we're going to lose it. Then one of the guys there goes, hey, why don't we get a refrigerator for our office? So my commander goes, heck, let's get a refrigerator for every office. So we ordered, I still remember that night, we ordered a refrigerator for every single office in the entire AWACS at Tinker. It was crazy. It's like, but it was fun. But how much, military is a little different than normal, in case you're wondering. All right, but the point of this is to save money, figure out ways to save money, and also repeat that. Another way you can think of it, you ever see like if something new comes out, it's very expensive, then the price keeps dropping and dropping and dropping, and then sooner or later it's almost free. So that's what they're talking about here. Because people figure out ways to do it better, save money doing it. Okay. Benchmarking. We're actually going to do a project in benchmarking, but benchmarking is a security blueprint, or where are we starting from? It says organizations usually draw from established models. So what did they do to secure their network? When I took over when I built my ISP, I benchmarked off another ISP and did what he did. Until I realized it was stupid, and then I changed it. But initially, I did what he did. Okay. Another way is to look at the paths taken by similar to yours, have developed a plan. What did they do? What worked? What didn't work? And what can you do to make it better? Or stuff like that. All right. And benchmark says following established practices or similar organizations. See what others are doing. All right. Okay, it can also help determine which controls should be considered. Because you might not even think about something that they have already thought of. Be like, ooh, I need that. Or I didn't even know I needed that. So that's a big issue. But you can't always determine how it'll be implemented or how it'll work, but it gives you a good place to start from. Okay? All right. Categories, we have standards of due care and due diligence. In other words, you're doing your best. Can't think of another way to put that. It says best practices, subcategory called golden standards. An example of that would be like those NIST documents. We looked at NIST 800-30 was risk. Okay? So that would be considered a standard for risk. So if you can develop something about risk, go with that. Okay? That's what people use. Okay? Due care says adopt minimum levels of security for legal defense. Because we're going to cover our butts. Okay? We've done what we need. We did all we needed to do, but no more. Okay? Due diligence controls with a minimum standard. Okay? One thing I think, even to this day, we all use, which I think, anyone here have an ATM card? And our PINs are 4-digit numbers? I mean, how secure is that? It's not very secure at all. So that's one thing I always think of. That's kind of like a minimal standard. When they developed ATM cards way back when, they said, what's the minimum amount of stuff we can secure this with? That's what it seems like to me. Why couldn't they make it work with 6 and 8 characters? About ATMs real quick, Melissa might have already heard this, but Dr. Sloan was talking to our school. They were called in to investigate an issue with ATMs. What had happened was in the manufacturing process, you know what skimmers are, where people add them on after the fact? Well, somewhere in the manufacturing process of some ATMs, someone got into it and actually installed skimmers inside the ATM. So when they were delivered to the banks, they were already installed with skimmers. Then people would just come up with Bluetooth, connect, and download the data off it. So the problem is, where did that happen? Which part of the manufacturing process did that happen? So it could be a big issue. Okay. All right, so due diligence requires an organization to ensure that the implemented standards continue to provide the required level of protection. What you can think about that is I put an antivirus program on here today. But, is it always going to keep working? Well, as long as you update it, it will. You have to make sure that keeps happening. Okay? All right. So failure to demonstrate due care, you might have problems. If we didn't do our best to protect them, we had a a room upstairs in where I work in our building where it's like the screen was on the front, okay? And somebody had a brainy idea to move it to the side. And when they did that, they turned all the desks sideways. But then what they ended up doing, instead of plugging in at the wall, they had cables running underneath those little carpet runners to each desk. They thought it was a better way of going it. And I told them we need to get rid of that. No, it's great, it's great. I says, yeah, until someone trips and falls and breaks their leg. In other words, we're not following at least some safety guidelines. It's amazing how quickly stuff gets done. When I came back from University of Tulsa in 2004, we had to create a lot of curriculum. You had to do all the CNSS mappings. We had to do a lot of stuff. And I was typing like crazy because we had a lot to do at that point. And I started getting some carpal tunnel on my wrists. You ever type a lot and you get that? So, man, I put in requests and I said, hey, I got a lot of typing to do. My wrists are starting to kill me. Is there any way I can get an ergonomic keyboard? And I'll tell you what, that same day, they went down to Office Depot and bought me one. I'm like, wow, how did they ever get that approved so quickly? But I guess they were worried that, hey, that's a big issue. Carpal tunnel, like a workman's comp, that whole thing. So.
Well, plus, you have a lot of value to the organization, and they wanted you to be productive.
Yeah, they want me to keep typing.
Right.
I still, to this day, have a split keyboard. And does anyone use split keyboards? I love them. But you get people who have never used one before, it really freaks them out.
It's a different deal.
Oh, it is. And suddenly your hands just sit there. But if you're not used to them, the keys don't connect in the middle, so people can't find the buttons. And they're like, ah. But I still got one of my students who does the whole this kind of typing, but he's fast at it. He's like, and it's like, not that fast, but I mean, it's quicker than you would think. But all right. So due diligence, important as well. Best practices. There's a lot of stuff on the internet you can always find. A prime example of something like that is legal documents. You ever want a legal document? Go on the web. There's tons of like blueprints of legal documents. Other people created some that worked, so you can use them. I had a will drawn up a few years ago. Do you think they actually created the entire will from scratch? Heck no, they started with a template. What's your name? Got any kids? And it basically built off of a template of best practices of what they've created in the past. Okay. So in security, it's the security efforts that seek to provide a superior level of performance in the protection of information. Now, this can also be a misleading thing. Just because organization A says this is great, we love it, it works great, does that mean it actually is going to work perfectly for you? Not necessarily. So don't always take the word for it. You still need to make your own decisions, where a lot of people don't. Way back when I taught networking, I had a captain in my class. I was teaching it for Tinker, for the military people. And captain was in there where I was talking about RAID 5. I'm assuming you all know what RAID 5 is.
Yes.
Okay. Well, he asked the question, why is the data moved from disk to disk? Why is the parity moved from disk to disk? And I said to prevent a single disk failure. That's totally false. Because RAID 4, the parity is all on one disk. And you can still have any one of the disks fail and you're still fine. RAID 5, really, it's done that for speed. Because it has to write, and then calculate and write. Instead of always that slowness being on one specific disk, disk 1 will be slow, then the next time disk 2 will be slow, then disk 3 will be slow. So the speed, it's actually to prevent a single disk failure, but also for speed. The difference between 4 and 5 is for speed. But it was funny that the book said it was for single disk failures only. But the captain was like, no, that's not right, because RAID 4 is that. What is the difference in 5? So we went out and got a bunch of books. But my point is, just because this book says something, just because some best practice says something, it's not always correct. You still need to use your knowledge and see if it's actually there, or see if it's correct. So,
in the law enforcement forensic industry, everything that we teach is test and validate for yourself.
all right.
Routinely, we find errors in the textbooks, and when I have that happen in class, I tell the students, test and validate. If you don't agree with it, test it, validate it, see for yourself if it's correct or not.
It's a great thing to do. I had a bunch of training from software vendors. Like I went through Access Data, which is FTK's training. And they also went through Guidance Software's training. And they were very different. FTK, obviously they each talk about their own software package. But FTK keeps going about how they're the greatest on the market. Look how great we are. We can do all this. No one else can do this. But then end case, on the other hand, guidance software said, we're not going to talk about anybody else. We don't care what they do. We're just going to tell you what we do. But what they did is just like what he said. Before we could use the automated tool for anything, we had to do it by hand. Because they're like, the tool might not be doing it correctly. Don't always rely on the products. So it says, know how to do it by hand. Because when you go to court and they say, how do you recover that data? I click that button right there. That ain't going to get it. Yeah, I clicked the button and it did it. Well, how did it do it? Well, the point is you need to know how it did it, okay? And the same with security. I'm not just going to implement everything school A has into my school. I might, but I want to know how it's doing. Why did you do this? I could do something better. Especially if you're benchmarking off of somebody else that's been using it for a couple of years. Their equipment's probably old too. Now, they might have experience with it, but there's probably something better on the market. Okay. All right, it says balancing the need for information access with adequate protection. We want to make sure it's protected, but we still want to give people the ability to use it. If it's secured to the point where you can't get nothing done, it's pretty worthless. Okay. Fiscal responsibility, we don't want you to waste money either. We don't want you to just throw money at it, where some places do. Military does that quite frequently. But, just don't keep throwing money at it. Okay. It says companies with best practices may not be the best in every area. Maybe they're great at protecting servers, but they suck at protecting desktops. Or they have great physical security, but they have very lax something else. So look at, we implemented a swipe card system in our health sciences building in our gym, where you take your student ID, which has a credit card, basically code on the back, and you can get in, they can program to let you in certain doors. Well, we want to get it for our building, and we were told, no, don't do it. That's the worst one in the market, the brand we got, I guess. So just because someone else is using it somewhere, that's what we did. We saw somewhere school had it, so our school bought it. Once they started using it, they figure out how it sucks. So they're looking to replace it with another one. So it's not always the best just to copy what somebody else does. All right. The gold standard says organizations prefer to implement the most protective, supportive, and yet fiscally responsible. That's what you want. You want something that works good, the best performance, the cheapest amount of money, quality, and not just quality. You want something that has proven quality. It's like the whole Quality Matters certification you can get for your online courses. Does that mean your course is good? No. It just means you followed a guideline and you basically have the right components in your class. Okay? All right. Recommended practices. Go by what they're doing. Go by what the government agencies do. That's where the NIST guidelines, which we talked about in the past, come in. Okay? NIST, they're basically best practices is all they are. Okay. Here's some of the questions. It says, does the organization resemble the identified target organization for the best practice? Is it kind of doing the same thing we're going to do? It's like, Brian? Is that right? Oh, was it Brett or Brian? Okay. Brian is looking to implement some virtual systems, and he's asking me questions about mine. We're similar to what he's doing, so it makes sense that he asks me questions so we can see if we're similar. So, okay. Okay, do you face similar challenges as the target? Yeah, you probably do. Okay. Is the structure similar or the resources similar? Okay. The threat environment similar? Yeah, but pretty similar. So, all right. The biggest barrier says organizations don't talk to each other. It says a successful attack is viewed when the organization failure and is kept secret. In other words, you got broken into and you didn't tell no one about it. So the whole credit card thing. That's a whole nother issue. But tell us what happens. That's, InfoGuard. Some of you know what InfoGuard is. It's a government organization. It was really made by the FBI, if I remember right, to share information. They wanted, it came about, this is what I've been told, around when the Code Red virus came out. Code Red came out, and it would take forever to get the information out, but InfoGuard was actually used to get the information to the corporations to get the problems fixed before the virus took over the world. So, yeah, there are things out there that do that now. Okay. Okay, it says more and more administrators or joint professional associations. That's InfoGuard, ISSA. There's a bunch of them out. There's always conferences everywhere. Problem is we have no money to go to any of them anymore. But there's a lot of stuff you can learn that way. Okay. So what is it? It says baseline is the value, a profile of a metric of what they're doing. What are they doing? How are they doing it? And is there a value to it? Okay. Measured against standards. Okay, and we're going to look in a minute how to do that. Okay. All right. It said it can also provide the foundation of internal benchmarking. A lot of times you look at what someone else is doing and then you copy it. Okay. It says information gathered from the first risk assessment becomes the baseline for future. What they're talking about there is, okay, with network access. We'll say, this actually happened with us. There was something going on Tuesdays at like 10 in the morning. I don't know what it was, but we got a call from OneNet, which is our network provider in Oklahoma, and said every Tuesday morning, like 10 a.m., whatever time period it was, they said something happens on the Rose State network where the traffic just goes crazy. So what they're doing is they were comparing Tuesdays against the rest of the time. Then they saw something was different. We still don't know what it was, but I don't know if they fixed it. But you take a measurement and then compare it. When I first got my solar panels, I didn't know if they were producing any power, but then month by month I could see that they were producing the right amount. You could see sunny days, so I knew they were working correctly. So I used it to compare against another one. Okay. Self-assessment says, do you perform background checks on all employees or only some of them? Rose State, when I got hired, said I might be, or have to get a drug, or whatever, pee in the cup, whatever. I guess it's a drug screen, isn't it? Okay, I might have to do a drug screen. But now they require it from everybody. Okay, I remember being in the military, we had random drug screens. Did you ever have that back there? Oh, man. I worked as a jet engine mechanic for years, and they'd literally walk in, lock the door behind them, said nobody leaves until everybody pees in the cup. I'm like, oh, that would suck. I didn't care less, but you got those people who can't. Like, oh my God, if you're watching me, I can't pee. I'm like, oh, what? You always got those people, and it drove me bananas. It's like, why the heck? I don't know, but that's what they're talking about. You should do it the same against everybody, okay? Okay, so would the average employee recognize a security issue? Well, we did a project, years ago now at Rose State. We had permission of the president, and only the president, no one else knew about this. We had students go throughout the campus and try to infiltrate the campus. One student went to get a faculty ID and was issued a faculty ID. One student walked into student services and said, hey, my name's John from IT Services. I'm here to fix your computer. And they said, okay. Says, can you log in for me? And they did. So it was just a bunch of stuff. They were able to recover all kinds of data that they shouldn't have been able to. And they actually finally did put a stop to it when that guy posed as John from IT Services. They did actually call IT Services. We ended up calling the cops, who the president put a quick stop to it because our IT guy at that point sent an email out, there's no imposter on campus, and about a minute later, disregard, there's no imposter on campus.
We do activities like that, but we normally have a trusted agent, an actual position of a trusted agent who will call, like we'll be nearby in an event like that to be able to step in, like the sergeant of the security force or whatever, and say no reason to call the police, you passed. Or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So, and we call it a trusted agent.
Yeah.
So no one gets shot.
Yes.
Got live weapons and stuff.
Yeah, that would kind of suck.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Yeah, but it was and the funny thing was after that first incident, they realized the value in it, but they don't want us to do it again.
Right.
Because too many people got scared, I guess. But it's a cool thing to do. But do people know what a security incident is? I'm wondering how many people could walk by a computer that's left logged on and would leave it logged on. Lots and lots and lots. Where the best thing to do is at least lock it, or log it off, or shut it down, or whatever. Or we had a student who checked the physical security of our building. He was just checking if doors were locked or unlocked. And our school has the weirdest policy. You might have the same one, I don't know. But when we leave at night, we have to lock our doors. All the classrooms and all the offices must be locked. Then at 10 o'clock at night, security comes in and unlocks every door. Props them all open so the cleaning crew can come in. So basically, we all leave by 9:45. At 10 o'clock, all doors are open. So I'm like, why are we shutting them then?
I get a lot of work done. I do a lot of black ops while the cleaning people are
Yeah, so they open every door at 10 o'clock. It stays open till wherever. Then they lock them up again. And they started this new deal. We got a new guy in charge of security. Well, whatever. But in my office, I have a room off the back of my office into it used to be a safe. Now it's just a storage room. I don't lock that door because it's inside my office. I mean, you have to get into my office to get into that back room. Well, they kept locking the darn thing. All of a sudden, they started. I mean, it's been unlocked and open for years. Then all of a sudden they start locking that stupid door. So I call them and I say, yes, we have a new policy that every door in the building will be locked every single night. Well, I figured out a way around it. If I just shut it but don't lock it, they don't even check it. So if I leave it open, they'll lock it. But if I just shut it, they don't even check it. So it's...
We call them limited performance tests when we go through and do, like, check the security,
Right.
self-assessment, leave a, they're not allowed to have cell phones in the classified areas. And so, and to see if anyone will report it, we'll leave the cell phone sitting there.
Oh, nice.
And see if anyone, like, they'll walk in, they'll look at it, and see how many people, like, pass it by without telling anybody. Or something
Nice.
like that. We call it limited performance tests. So we gather that information and use it as their self-assessment every year.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. All right.
Sometimes they do well,
Sometimes they don't.
not so good.
All right. And how about the second one? Would they choose to report it? A lot of people don't. It's easier not to say anything than it is to report it. And I totally agree with that. Okay. Would they know who to report it to? You should always report it to your boss or whatever. No? All right. Processes. So enterprise security policy is updated at least on an annual basis. Okay. Wow. Security policy is updated on an annual basis. We don't even have any written policies down. So I don't think we're meeting that criteria. Okay. Employees are educated on changes and consistently enforced. We do that when we make changes to our policies and procedures. We are notified of them. Okay. Does the enterprise follow a patch or update management and evaluation process? Somewhat we do. Somewhat. Ours is done. Faculty and staff on our campus is enforced through group policy. Our computer labs are enforced through a different area of group policy that's managed by our lab assistant. So we do, it's just done a little bit different. Okay? Are user accounts for former employees immediately removed? I would hope so. If not, they should at least be disabled. Okay? Are security representatives involved in all stages of the product life cycle? It would be nice if they were. Actually, go back to personnel one more time. What do y'all have you guys have, do you have codes on all the doors or is it only on some doors? Just some. Do you have keys for the other doors? I'm assuming. What happens after people leave? Do you guys change keys? Like ours, I have a master key for my building, and quite a few people have a master key from our building, and they never change them. And they're losing them all the time. Finally, they came out about a year ago and said, it's been like 10 years since we've updated the master key, so they rekeyed everything. But a lot of places have policies where if someone leaves, all codes are changed, all keys are changed.
Well, we have a full-time faculty over in the other building. We have 2 computer labs over there with door codes.
Right.
He was giving it the door code out to students because they got there before he did. So
Oh.
because they get in, it's like, really? I went in there twice. He said, where's your instructor? Well, he'll be here for 10 or 15 minutes. It's like, out.
Oh, jeez.
Call facilities and they have your key. So I told him, you don't need the code.
Oh, wow. What they did, we have codes similar to yours, not quite the same thing. And it was funny because they were changing them. Every semester they were changing the code, which was great. But they weren't clearing the old codes. What they were doing was putting in a new code, telling everybody that needs it the new code. But the old code still worked. Finally, one day, they asked me what the code is. I says, I don't know what the current one is, but this one still works. They're like, what do you mean it still works? I says, told you all before, you aren't clearing the codes out. So sure enough, all the previous codes that have been in there forever all worked. And so I don't know if it's been fixed yet. Okay. All right, technology. Is every possible route to the internet protected by a configured firewall? Hopefully. Maybe not. When I worked at Tinker, we went through proxy servers a bunch. And it was kind of funny because if you wanted unrestricted access to the internet, you just went through like proxy server number 8. It was a specific one that was not set to filter anything. And they just didn't tell the normal people about it. It's kind of like a backdoor. Okay? Not a good idea to do, but they still have those. I don't know if they still have it in place, but at one point they did. Okay, is sensitive data on laptops encrypted? I would hope so. That's another thing you need to check. Now, would you consider, okay, he's got a laptop right here. Is it encrypted? Probably not, but is it sensitive data? Then you get into the point of what do you consider sensitive data? Is a student ID sensitive data? So it varies. Okay, I'm retired military, and I tell you, until just recently, my Social Security number has been on my ID card for years. They finally got rid of it. It's at the point now where my dependents' ID cards says see file. No, it doesn't even say that anymore. That's what it did before. Now it just has a DOD ID number, which is not related. It's related to your social. I mean, it's linked to it, but it's not your social. And so it's not even on there anymore, which is nice. So they finally got rid of that. Okay. Do you regularly scan systems for vulnerabilities? Okay, do you use some tool for that? Or we use SMS or whatever the current one they're using now. I don't know exactly what it is. Okay. Are virus scanners installed? Yes. Okay. And what I always wonder is, I know the virus scanners are managed by group policy and they remove software like my hacking tools I put on there, but they never come and talk to me about it. So I'm wondering, are they actually getting reports that it's detecting something and ignoring the reports? I never know that.
When somebody, I would get a email saying that somebody got the conflictor virus.
Right.
I call up the user and say, okay, you brought a jump drive in from home, and you plugged it in our networks, and you got the conflictor virus, so you need to go home and remove it off your own PC.
Nice. But I always wondered, does my school, unless they're saying, oh, that's Ken's machine, we don't care about his machine. Because it happens all the time. I'll try to run John the Ripper for a class project. Man. And the funny thing was, I'd go into the antivirus and turn it off. And about every 15 minutes, the group policy would re-enable it. So I'd be right in the middle of my lecture, boop, there goes my files. Darn it. Turn it back off, put the files back on. Okay, do my demo, go, there they go again. So if you look on my forensics class, it was like lab 4 or something this year, you'll see that. Because you see in my demo, the files kept disappearing. I had to keep going in and re-putting the files on there again. It was pretty funny. Okay.
You know, at the Board of Trade of Kansas City, I did some consulting for them, and I had to set up completely diskless. Like, they couldn't connect anything.
Wow.
And they pushed the OS even out to the client. They just had the computers for the RAM and the processing.
Huh.
But they just couldn't risk anything at all.
That's awesome, though. Very secure.
Yeah, like if somebody opened the box, they couldn't risk somebody took the hard drive.
Wow.
So,
Huh.
yeah.
I had a student who used to work at the... What now?
You got some bandwidth that way.
Yes, definitely. Every time they boot it up, well, I had a student who worked at the Postal Service in Oklahoma City. He doesn't anymore, but he worked there for years. And he was in charge of their security, of their network security, and he was all upset with them because some of the computer systems that are used to process mail are NT workstation machines. I mean, really, really old. And what the problem is, people are bringing in flash drives, and they're getting infected with viruses. And there's no virus scanners out that it can run on those, because the old versions, they don't update the firmware or the DAT files anymore. So he was asking me what to do. I said, dude, I have no clue. You're going to have to update your hardware, because at least I didn't know of any virus scanners that would support anything that old. But it was kind of weird. Okay. All right. This is cost, benefits, and performance. They're all measurable. How much you're spending? Now, everything is measurable, and you should report it. When I worked in the software development flight in the military, we had to report the lines of code we created each month. I'd have to go to each person. Okay, what kind of code did you write this month? And we'd have to report that. It was part of our metrics. Everything is measurable. Okay. All right. So the performance manager, they talk about designing, implementing, and managing, collecting data. There's just lots of components, and a lot of times you do it with, like Al was talking to me earlier, with automated systems like ISSA and stuff like that, or you can do it with Snort. There's a bunch of different programs out there. Is there one called Big Brother or something like that too? Anyone know that one? There was something like that. It was for home use. You could use it, but there's a lot of different programs out there that can help collect all this information. Okay.
I've seen them use Snort also as a IDS
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
It's cheap because it's free.
Yeah, and I actually had to write a Java-based version of Snort when I was in Tulsa.
Yeah.
Tell you, learning how to write something, ooh, that's a good one to write. What's funny about that is we had to, in that project, we had to detect certain types of viruses. And the teacher had a closed network that had the viruses on it. And then you would plug in your code, then you would see if you could detect them. But there was one I couldn't detect for nothing. So I went to one of my classmates and I said, were you able to detect this virus? He goes, oh yeah, I got that one done. So I saw his report, said he was done with it. Then it was right at the end of the semester, I'm like, dude, I still can't detect that virus. How did you possibly detect it? He goes, well, my report says I did, didn't it? I said, yeah. He goes, yeah. He couldn't figure it out. He just wrote it in his report, said he did. And so I wrote in my report, said I did, got 100. Because there was no way the instructor could have checked everything. But it was, he's like, yeah, it says I did, didn't it? Like, oh, you suck.
That's the next best out.
Yeah, pretend you can do it. Okay. adjust the data so it looks like you're actually catching them all.
Exactly.
All right, some of the different measures. Effectiveness is one of them, okay? The efficiency is another, okay? The number of instances. There's a lot of different things you can look for, okay? There's a bunch of NIST documents. We're not going to go through all these, okay? There's about how to measure all these. I think, actually, no, I don't have that one on this, I don't think. This is chapter 6, isn't it? I don't think I put 7. No, I didn't put that one in there. Okay. So I didn't get a chance to find all of these for you. Okay. But measuring performance, there's a whole entire NIST document about it. Goes into great gory depth about it. Excuse me. And just like with everything else, you need to have strong management support. Okay. You got to have quantifiable stuff. Way back when, whenever I see quantifiable and I see all that kind of stuff, and whenever I take a statistics class, yeah, I actually clept out of one. I took a weekend seminar on how to pass the statistics CLEP test. The guy said, don't understand anything, just know it. And I passed the test, but I kind of feel bad to this day because that's the one area that I'm a little bit weak on. Like mean, median, and mode. It's all the average, pretty much. But that's about where I'm at with it. Yeah, it's like...
67% of all statistics are just made up on this
Yeah. You see that movie, A Beautiful Mind? Where he proved that all the economic statistics were false. The guy was just picked a number and used them. I think that was the book where it was. The guy was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was his first thing he did was the economics.
Yeah, he proved that some guy just randomly, he said, where'd you come up with that number? I just chose it.
Right.
Wow. That's not a good idea. Okay. So basically, keeping track of your results is a kind of a big issue. Okay. And metrics. Okay. It says applying statistical qualitative approaches to measuring stuff or measuring what's going on in your organization, activities, the outcomes, all that's important. And you know, we have our works over in our academic area. The guy who this is all he does in school now. He does metrics. He basically does graduation rates and enrollment. That's all he does. He runs metrics. All that. It's kind of nice because he's our stats teacher, so he's great at it. And if I ever need anything, he says, "Hey Jeff, can you tell me the enrollment or whatever?" All right, right here, got it. So kind of handy to have that. But we need something like that for security. I do not know, but if I was to call my IT services, could you tell me what the average number of threats in the last year? They probably, I don't know. But so. All right. It says measurement refers to aggregate high-level results. In other words, what are the numbers? Okay. Way back when I was in the military, I was a resource advisor for a little while. And I had to report on avgas, which is the aviation gas for aircraft. I had to put a report on the usage of it. I had to the average gas being used each month. You need the same thing for security. The average number of viruses, the average number of incidents, all that kind of stuff. All right, questions to be asked. Why should these be collected? Is there a use for it? If there's no use for it, don't collect it. Okay. Some people just, it's like with auditing. If you go in and just audit everything, you're wasting your time. You have to have a use for it to audit it. Okay. What statistics should be collected? How will they be collected? When will they be collected? Who will collect them? Where will they be collected from? Internal, external, from your firewall or from wherever. Okay. Okay, and your program must demonstrate value. If you can't show value in it, why do it? Okay. Just like the forensics program, many places don't have one. But wait till they have an instance where they need one, then they'll realize they should have had one. Okay. CMM, the Capability Maturity Module. I actually did that when I was in the software engineering in the military. It's a way of developing software, and it's very popular. I think it's still used today, as far as I know.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I worked with it, but it's tough. I mean, you have to go through so many steps, and it's just a good way of doing it. Okay. All right. There's another NIST document about performance measures. Okay. Identification and definition of current information. Okay. I'm not going to go through the documents because I don't have them this time. Okay. It says assess and quantify what will be measured. That's a very important thing. What are you going to check? And is that a static thing? No, you should change it at all time. I mean, if there's something new you want to check, then modify your statistics there to require something else. Okay. They can be estimates as well. I always like seeing. I was actually on the news today. I was reading at lunchtime. They were talking about between Obama and Romney, who's going to win what area, and they always have like plus or minus 3%. How do they know those numbers, or where do they come up with this stuff? It's just amazing to me how they can come up with estimates, but they're usually pretty close. Okay. All right, some thought must have gone into all of this. Again, if you collect too much data, it's tough. When I ran my ISP, collecting mail logs was one of the issues I had, and how much do you collect? How long do you keep it? So that's same with security. Record keeping, all that stuff's important. Way back when I was in the military, in the networking area, they came to me and said, we want to know the uptime of our Windows servers. You know, if you know anything about servers, Windows servers don't have an uptime. Linux does, but Windows does not. So they said, well, we need to know. I said, all right, really, the only way to know is look for events 605 and 609 that are recorded when the system restarts. And think back, because we have logs of what was done to them. So I said, okay, we can say, okay, they changed something, machine was restarted, so we can estimate. So I went to the event log to look at it, and they were all blanked because someone had set them to overwrite automatically. Like, where's this up? Well, they kept getting full, so we just overwrite them. I'm like, so I said, I cannot give you any numbers because I have no way of recovering data for stuff that's been overwritten. So that's a big issue. Record keeping is kind of important. Okay. Even when it's not when it's just related to security, record keeping in any area. Taxes. I mean, heck, I'm being audited this year, so who knows what they're going to want to see from my records. It's driving me crazy. But filed my taxes. They said I would know something by the second week of March. I said, great. Called them the third week of March. We'll let you know beginning of April. Called them the end of April. We will know by August. What the heck? This is we're backlogged right now. Obviously. Well, you owe me money. Pay up. But I donate some to charity, and it's over the normal threshold for people to donate. So they're auditing me. So it's great. I got all the records. I just need them to ask for them so I can show it to them. But it's crazy. Okay. But who and why, all that stuff is important when it comes to metrics. Okay. And at the very bottom it says, along with that, basically, what are we going to do with all these things? Okay. Why are we getting this measure? We want to know what to do with it. It says, along with the thorough knowledge of how production services are delivered. So if I'm looking at network bandwidth, what does that actually mean? So you need to know what you're collecting. Okay, determine what they will be doing with them. Okay, macro, in other words, large focus or small. Okay, the overall performance, or it could be on an individual system. We're actually going to do a thing here with alerts on the individual systems. Okay. All right. It says organizations manage what they measure. And if you don't measure it, you're not going to really know about it, so you probably won't manage it, and you won't even care about it. Like if we did not keep track of graduation rates, our school wouldn't care, but that's something we keep track of, so that's what we do. Okay. All right. Normally you come up with a ranking system. What's more important than others? And we're going to walk through an example and see kind of how to do that. Performance targets. Would it be nice if we had a 100% target for everything? Like when we did our grant, we have like 94% of the students will graduate in 2 years. I don't think we met it yet. We've got up to like 87%. But you want full compliance of everything, but is that even possible nowadays? It's pretty much not possible. So, all right. So it says many measures you want 100% target. A lot of times you don't get them. Okay. So those that determine effectiveness, efficiency. Are you doing it? That's at our school. Our graduation rate is XYZ. Has it gone up or down? Are we doing things right or not? We keep coming up with these new programs, to help get our current one, I think, is finish what you start. I don't know. What they actually do is they're having people going through old enrollment records. And if they're finding someone who's short just a class or two, they'll contact them and say, hey, you only need one more class to get your associate's degree? So, kind of a cool idea, but I don't know if it's been effective. I haven't seen the results of that yet. Okay. Here are some examples. Okay. A lot of examples. And we're not going to walk through all of those. All right. Here's some of the stuff we can measure. This is percentage of the organization's security budget devoted to information security. So here's how much money we have, how much you're spending on security. That's one thing you can look at. Okay. high vulnerabilities that we took care of. In other words, how many viruses did we catch? That's always good to know. Especially if you want to spend some money on a virus scanning program, you need to show them you're catching viruses. Or your firewalls are blocking spam. We use a program called Ironport. Don't know what you use for spam filtering here? A firewall?
We'll have a fire.
You gotta have a firewall. No firewall? Yes, you do. Have to. It's impossible. You have to have some sort of firewall somewhere. All right, but we use something called Ironport.
I'm sure we have a security appliance of some sort.
Yeah, you have to have something. It might just, it might be a chair stuck in front of the door or something, but I don't know. But
There may be something on the core.
yeah, it's got to be on the core at least.
Well, I think so.
Yeah, it has to be on your main data center. But I mean, these.
Mornet does a lot of that, so that they might just rely on Mornet to
They might.
do that.
They could be.
Because I mean, Mornet's got a lot of those tools and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
I could see that happening. But when I ran my ISP, I used to obviously deliver email. Does anyone know about what percentage of email spam?
85% or something like that.
Actually, it was up in the 90s.
We're at about 85%.
Wow. I think I was
All email traffic.
I was doing a whole bunch of statistics for my PhD, and I was usually getting between 83 or 93 and 94% of email is spam.
Yeah, I ran spam assassin a few years ago, and it was 94%.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I had my account would literally get hundreds and hundreds of spam a day. And some would make it through, some would not, but I'd still have to delete quite a few each day. I still remember one of my clients called me, an older lady. She goes, Ken, you're my provider. I need some help. I said, what's the deal? She goes, well, I have viruses. Well, I mean, I had too much spam. It's okay. We all have spam. What's too much spam? She goes, well, I went home on Friday and I deleted all my spam. Came in Monday morning, I had 3 pieces of spam. That's unacceptable. I'm like, 3? I get 3 a minute. So what I try to tell people is spam is just like the flyer you got in your mailbox at home. What do you do when you get a JCPenney flyer? Throw it in the trash can. Delete the spam. Do you contact JCPenney, tell them you stop sending? No, you just throw it away. Same with spam, you just delete it. So, but we have a new appliance, I guess it's not new now, but a appliance at our school called Ironport. It handles our firewall, our mail filtering. It got my spam down to about 0. So I don't know what it does. Really haven't lost any email that I know of that I've lost. Normally if you delete good stuff, people start saying, hey, how come you never answered me? But it's pretty nice, so I like it.
We have Blue Code, and the thing that I think makes it smart or easier to manage is it's managed by everyone who uses Blue Code. So if you mark something as spam, and it goes by like the number of their customers that have marked this as spam, it assumes that it is.
Okay, not just one though.
Not right. Yeah.
Okay.
And so it all works.
That's
Well,
the
that's
same
cool.
selling point as the Iron Porch. It's got
It works pretty good.
Huge customer base.
Group of people that are watching that database, and
Right.
everybody gets to use it.
So if
That's
like
cool.
50, I don't know what the percentage is, and you
Yeah.
can actually tune yours to be more or less. So you can say, if 30% of the people within an hour mark this as spam, then
It's probably spam.
They'll be marked for everything as spam. And,
Well, that's cool.
yeah.
I used to sit there and try to filter based on content. You know how many different ways you can spell pharmacy or Viagra? Man, literally thousands of ways you can spell Viagra. So how did it possibly come up with, or pictures of the word Viagra, or it was nightmares. But a lot of different stuff. Okay, so percentages of stuff mitigated is a very good thing to keep track of, especially when you want to sell stuff. We need it because look, we have 8,000 viruses coming in each day. Because if you say, hey, you got no viruses, well, they don't want to pay for nothing. Okay. Remote access points, how many people are getting in remotely? Another thing to keep track of. Bandwidth is obviously a good one to keep track of. Okay. Number of people that have received training is another good thing. Okay. I know that's one of the things Cheryl reports on all the time. Number of people that went to these different classes. That's what she messed up on my report, by the way. No, she had it wrong of how many classes I teach. Now, there was a section report, like how many times was forensics offered. She had me offering each class just one time in the entire year. I'm like, no, I do more than that. So I had to update those numbers. So that's right. Yours might be messed up too. But
Yeah, well, there's some numbers I'm questioning after the other day. So.
yes, but I mean, we're submitting those numbers to her each semester.
Right.
I mean, and if I got forensics listed 3
Now,
times,
are you listing, when you list forensics as portion taught, meaning taught at only rows?
yes,
Or,
yeah.
okay.
Only, I don't list what I teach here.
Here,
That's considered workshops that you host, I
okay.
guess.
Which I.
Yeah, I don't
just
list
wanna make
those.
sure, because there was a, depending upon what you're reporting, you either had duplicate or non-duplicate.
Yeah, I don't report when I teach for someone else. So
Our spam filter is hosted online forefront for exchange.
yeah, okay. So I'm wondering if so we just switched to that. So, but that's one. Is there another one? Is there another? You probably still have some main appliance for your data center. You have to. You have to. Yeah, you would have to.
Perhaps, yeah, I'm new to that area. So
Yeah.
I may not know.
All right. The average frequency of audit records review. How often do people look at this stuff is another thing that's important. Okay. Percentage of systems that have been accredited. Okay. Certification and accreditation. Okay. That's real big in the FAA. Approved and implemented configuration changes. How many of those are done? So there's a lot of stuff you can report on. Okay. Percentage of users with shared accounts. There's just all kinds of stuff. Okay. Tons of them here. We're not going to look at all these. There's way too many. Operating system vulnerabilities in which patches have been applied and there's been other. In other words, are you keeping your systems updated? Okay. All right. They must be implemented and integrated into ongoing management operations. In other words, they must be changing at all times. Okay. It's inefficient. I love that. It's inefficient to collect these only one time. You know, it'd be nice if you only had to collect it one time, but what good is it? I mean, you want to see a trend. You want to see, I always look at my electric usage at my house. My electric bill always shows last year. I don't know if you all do that here. I can see basically 13 months in the past is what I can see. I always like to see, did I do better than last year? That's what I'm always looking at. Because I know different months will go up and down, but is it better than last year? So I'm looking at the metrics from last year. So you must do this ongoing. Okay, here we go. Prepare, collect, analyze, identify corrective actions if needed. Develop your case if you need to buy something to fix something, then get whatever you're talking about getting, then apply it, then start all over again. Keep going. It's a non-stop job. I said my student this week got hired as the PCI compliance person for that Marine guy. So I was assuming that his job is not just to run the PCI compliance check once a year and then sit on his butt and do nothing for the rest of the year. Probably nice if he could. Yeah. But no, I actually ran PCI compliance checks for some gyms, local gyms. And it drove me crazy because the gyms I took care of have cameras all throughout the gym. They record everything. And they keep it for like 2 weeks on a DVR system. But they have web access into that DVR system. But there was a sequence number guessing attack vulnerability on all the DVR systems. And the PCI compliance check kept failing us every year. It's like, oh, you have a vulnerability in sequence number guessing. But it took me nearly 2 years to get them to understand that you're looking at the video recorder. It's not connected to the credit card system whatsoever. Totally separate system. They finally got it under their heads that, oh, that's not important. It's just, drove me crazy. Okay. The bottom bullet here, how should these results be disseminated? Should you tell people what's going on? Yeah, at least some people, at least management or somebody. It should probably go out to everybody. Speaking of sending reports to everybody, back then I worked at the network shop at Tinker. This is the ultimate thing you should never do. Every quarter, the main part of base, which is now it's all contracted out, the main part of base would run a program like Loftcrack, if you ever heard of it, and break all the passwords on the base for all users. Then they would make a report, highlight the bad passwords, stick them in an envelope and send them to all the commanders and tell them to get the passwords fixed. Come out every quarter. You get this big old folder in of every user account and password, the bad ones highlighted, sent to all the commanders. What do you think about that policy? Is that the stupidest thing known to man? Couldn't have believed they did it. And the commanders would come to us and say, okay, you need to contact so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so to change their password. The password's bad. They would literally send out the passwords to all the commanders. What?
In plain text.
Oh, yeah, in plain text. It would actually be like an Excel file. Bob, his password is dog. Highlight it, tell him to fix it.
User ID.
Yeah, it was crazy. I couldn't believe they did that. I said, why are they doing this? But that was also Now this is right about 2000 time period, maybe 99, where they could not implement DHCP because they had certain machines that needed specific addresses. It's called a reservation. Like, oh no, we can't do that. I'm like, what do you mean you can't do that? So we literally, while I was there, twice went to the entire AWACS domain, manually assigned different IP addresses. You know how much that sucked?
Yeah.
Now they're finally DHCP. I kept saying, why are we using DHCP? Oh, we can't, because this guy needs this specific address. Okay, not a big deal. Take, one little thing, that's all it takes. It was crazy. All right. But how should the results be disseminated is a big issue. Especially, can you imagine if you have bad results and getting out to the press or something, and, well, Rose State had 87 violations of XYZ problems this month. That wouldn't be good. Okay. Accreditation is the authorization of an IT system to process, store, and transmit information. Systems have to be accredited to work on like the FAA network and such. Again, here, it's not so much important, but on government agencies, it is an issue. Okay? It says, issued by a management official and serves as a means of assuring the systems are adequately protected or adequate quality. Okay? Doesn't mean they're going to work great. It just means you went through the steps. And I got students, a whole bunch of students out there working on it. Okay? They go with constraints, operational constraints, and mission requirements. Okay? Certification. They have been certified as a comprehensive evaluation of the technical and non-technical controls of the IT system. Okay? It works with the accreditation, so you get certification and accreditation. It's kind of like our North Central accreditation we have. Okay. It says organizations have accreditation or certification to gain a competitive advantage. It's kind of saying, I have my A+ certification. What does that mean? It means I know something. It doesn't mean I know everything. It means I know something. So that's what certifications are good for. Okay. And there's a guideline about that. We're not going to look through these. It takes forever. We actually do a project in that as well. I don't have that one with me. I don't normally manage that one. I'm trying to think of what they do on that project. I can't remember it. We do a project in that area though. I don't normally do that one. So, all right. There's a listing of a bunch of the publications used. Okay. And here's another document. I think the majority of the rest of the chapter is all about these different publications. They talk about characterization, security controls. So there's just a bunch of documents out there to talk about these. We're just not going to go through them all. Okay. It wouldn't hurt to go and look at some of them. But all right. More and more. Yeah, 53. Yeah, recommended controls. Yeah. All right. So controls broken down into familiar classes, management, operational, technical. What we've been talking about. Okay.
What I found is that the 37, the one you had before that, where you characterize the system.
Right.
If you characterize the system accurately, then you can use the 53 to figure out what controls NIST feels like you need.
Okay.
And then between those two, then you look at the other things.
Yeah.
But between those two, usually, if we
Okay.
can agree on the characterization,
Right.
like it's low, medium, or high
Right.
in each of the 3 CIA areas,
Right.
then 53 kind of outlines what you should
Right.
do.
So basically, use 37 to make sure we determine what the system is,
Right.
classify it correctly,
Right.
then implement it with 53. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Because if you, like if you have a system that controls the air conditioning unit,
Right.
which we have, a lot of buildings have systems that control the air conditioning.
Right.
And like confidentiality, love. Right?
Yeah.
Because who cares?
Right.
Integrity, who cares?
Yeah.
Availability, still who cares? Normally, if the system goes off, the air conditioners keep on running. You just can't change the temperature.
Okay.
So if everything is set to low, then when you go to 53, you have less work to do
Right.
to accredit the system. And typically you have an organization that either accredits too high or accredits too low, and you have to agree on your criteria for that, and then you can
Nice.
do where credit too high and everything is too expensive.
Yeah, it's
do,
too
credit
tough,
too
yeah.
low, they don't do enough.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. All right, the future of it. Things are changing all the time. Like I told you, CNS certifications are always changing. The NIST documents are always changing. Okay. They're always being updated. I don't know the time frame, but they're always being updated. Okay. All right. That's the end of chapter 7. Stop this.